All right, welcome back to Roundtail Restoration, everybody. You know, I had a comment on my last video about my Apprentice. I do appreciate the Apprentice analogy, so that's what he'll be referred to from here on out. Anyway, the Apprentice and I will be continuing with tearing apart the motor. Next to me, you can see the motor is already flipped over and I got the oil pan off. It's a little bit further along than you're going to see at the very start of this video. Try to make my editing a little better. I wasn't really talking all that much, so we'll try to interact a little bit more with you guys to kind of show and explain what I'm doing, as well as teaching the Apprentice on the ins and outs of Triumph motor theory. So thanks for watching. So next up here, we'll get the all the valves and whatever else, springs and stuff that I can get out of the head. This one intake valve here is recessed a little bit, or exhaust valve is recessed into the head a little bit. That makes me a little concerned, and it also not quite sure what work has been done here. There may be replacement seats in there on the exhaust. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm not real sure what these look like originally, but we're gonna head and get it apart, see what it looks like. All right, and then you just screw it in. Keep an eye on the head there to make sure you're actually around the collets and you're not going to pinch them. And you should see it slowly start to compress. Is it not letting you do it because of that thing? I'm going to get a little flatbed for you so you can pop the collets out of there. You probably have to compress it, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/2 an inch, not very far. Yep, and now just kind of stick that in there and slide the collets out on one side. All right, so your spring is angled if you can see it. So you got to keep tightening it. I'll press down, you tighten. And then eventually you'll compress the whole thing enough. You just pop that collet out. All right, so now slowly wind it out. And you're gonna hold, yep, good. And the springs don't extend too far, but you should start to feel the pressure start to relieve. All right, and when you're ready to take it off, you can press the button if you want, help you. And then just watch as you're moving away that you don't clock into the, good. All right, so now, right, these are the little collets and you can kind of see that little ridge in there. All right, so now pull the cap off and the springs. So what you got here, you got this guy, all right, little cap. And then an inner spring and an outer spring. So you can feel it.
Spring.
Well, there's 3 springs, okay. I thought there was only 2.
It's kind of weird.
All right, so now you can squeeze them and kind of get a feel if you want how tight the springs are. Not terrible. Right, but these are, engine's turning over at 4,000 RPM, right? So put that guy in there just to make it easy to get everything together. So now you can push the valve through this way. Yep.
Oh, that was weird.
And that's it. So now that's the valve. Yep, so now this is the surface that rides through the valve guide, right? So that's gonna be nice and shiny. See that grease? There's more of that grease. Remember we saw the grease on top of the piston? So I don't know if they put this into layup to try to keep everything clean or what.
Why is it darker?
I think most of it's just because it's running in the motor and all the carbon and everything. All right, so it's got a part number on it, 821025. So now is this an intake or exhaust?
Exhaust.
Yep, it's an exhaust, right? There's a couple ways you know. 1, usually the intake valves are bigger, and 2, you can kind of line up the holes. So we want to keep all this stuff together. So there shouldn't be anything else here now. This is a valve, oh, you do have more stuff. So go ahead, get that stuff off the base. If you need this to kind of pry it out of there a little bit. All right, so now this is the bottom retainer, or whatever that's properly called, I don't know. That should be it, right? That brass piece won't come out. That's pressed in there. So now,
again. Ewy.
What is that? Cobweb? In the head? It's terrible. Showing you the other side here where the C-clamp mates up with the top of the valve. You can see obviously that the valve guides are brass, which are nice. So obviously, and again, the engine has been worked at some point. Get the bottom out and see if I've got oversized pistons at all or anything like that. The one that the exhaust valve that we just took out, that was number 2 exhaust, seemed to be a little recessed in the head. You're going the wrong way. So a little concerned of that. You just want to make sure that if you do it this way, we'll keep your hand on the whole C-clamp there and make sure that I would loosen it up and go back down. Make sure that the tangs of the C-clamp aren't interfering with the collets and smashing the top of the valve. All right, sometimes they fall off, sometimes they don't. Take a little flathead screwdriver and just kind of pop them out of there. Like that. And then loosen everything up. All right, so now this is an intake valve. So the intake valve has 2 springs, an inner and an outer, and then the cap, I don't remember what that thing's called. And then the valve itself is there, and you can see the groove that's cut in the top of the valve, and that's essentially where the collets kind of clip in there. And just as the spring, you can see that they're at an angle, so as the spring tension comes up, it pinches those 2 collets together and it grabs the top of the valve. All right, now the exhaust valves are a little different. They've got 3 springs in them, and then on the bottom there's another little retainer. If I can get it out here. and drop it. Another little retainer that sits in the bottom, and that sits right over top of the valve guide, and that holds that bottom spring together. So 3 springs for the exhaust, 2 springs for the intake, and then a bottom retainer piece for the exhaust. So the one, I had mentioned that the one exhaust valve was seen to be recessed. So it looks like this has got new seats in it, maybe. Still, without getting it totally cleaned up, it's kind of hard to tell, but there's definitely something going on there. You can see that extra little ridge like on this one here. So I assume there's been hardened exhaust seats put in it, which is nice, but it looks like this one isn't there anymore. So that's concerning. I didn't find it in the head at all, so that's somewhere. But brass valve guides, it looks like the head, and I don't know, I can't tell if the head's been shaved or not, but I would assume it has been since everything else has been done. And it's been done a while ago. The engine was definitely run. Pretty rusty in the ports and all that kind of stuff. So again, just more stuff to clean up. I probably go ahead and get the studs out. This locating pin here is chewed up pretty good. This one's in good shape. I don't know how to really get those out without, I don't know how to get those out. I'm not going to worry about the plug now. I'll pull this oil gallery or the water plug in the back there, and we'll see if I really want to get the studs out of here or not. But all in all, it's had work done, so can't blame it for a 60-year-old, I guess. All right, so I got some padding on this, just on the head surface, and wrapped her up in some plastic just for putting it away to provide some protection until I decide the full plan here. Everything's bagged up, tagged up, and ready to move on now to getting the block stripped completely. Wonder if I can find a valve seat in there. What? Making fun of me? All right, you ready? All right, so back on the block here, we're going to take the oil pump off first, get that out of the way, and then I think we're going to move to getting the front of the motor off with the cam chains and all that kind of stuff. And it says Swag Germany on here, so I'll have to look in to see what that all means. And both the sprocket on the cam and on the crankshaft say Swag Germany, and there's some identification numbers on there, so we'll check that out. Nope. Yep. There you go. And then you should be able to pull it up. Now there you go.
It's pretty heavy.
Is it? All right, yeah. Give me the washers. All right, and then that's where that gear runs through, right? So on the other side of this is the distributor. And it all runs off the same gear, which is this guy down here on the camshaft. This is where the camshaft is. This is where the crankshaft is. Look at the gears. Not how many times, but what's going to spin faster? Why?
Smaller.
It's a smaller gear. So every time this goes 1 revolution, this will go how much?
3.
So you think this will turn faster?
Like 0.3, I don't know.
So this turns slower?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's see if you're right. So right now the Germany's right up top, and this hole's right up top. Mm-hmm. So 1 revolution, Germany will be back up at the top, and you're sitting, where will this hole be? Will it have gone around several times, or will it only have gone around half the time?
Half.
So okay. All right, very good. Exactly 2 to 1, right? So for every rotation of the crank, the camshaft turns half. Think about it. Intake and exhaust, you've got 2 things that need to happen while the piston has to move up and down twice. So you don't need this to turn as much as you need this, right? You have an intake stroke, compression, exhaust, power, I should say, exhaust, right? So that the piston has to go up and down twice for the camshaft to take care of its job once. So now another thing on here is these have to be aligned properly so that when number 1 piston is ready for its intake, the camshaft is opening number 1 intake valve. So these have to be aligned, and there's ways to do that, and there should be little match marks in these gears, little dots that show you where these are aligned, and I don't see any little dots in here, which is odd because I don't know how they did it. Unless there's like little cutaways in here, unless it's those, but I'm not seeing any dots on anything. So I'm gonna make my own. This is a center punch. See, Eric, I got it right. This is a center punch. Okay, where's that hammer? You hand me the hammer. So we're just gonna make a mark here. A mark here. All right, so now I've got 2 marks, right? They're not very big. So now I know when I put this back together, those 2 marks need to be in the same spot. Now the problem is that you can get 180 degrees out, right? Because they're not 1 to 1. Right? So if this turns 1 time, this turns half a time. So it's easy to, but that'll at least give me a starting point. All right, am I putting you to sleep? Yeah. All right, so now now that that is done and marked, now I can take that gear off. Okay. Oh, whole cam's coming. You ready? All right, so what we're gonna do here, since we can't get that bearing, the lock-in cap off, like you just did. All right, great.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so put that, this is beefy. All right, so I'll put that guy here. So that should come off. You got a stud down here and a couple pins. So there you go. So this is the engine. This is the front plate, right? So this is what essentially these are where the motor mounts are, if you remember when we took it off. And then just gasket material under here. So we'll get that eventually all cleaned up and nice. Let's see, figure out how to get that thing off.
Oh, I can just pull it out right
Yeah, you should be able to just pull the can out. Now wait, give me this. If you're not using a tool and you're doing something else, get the tool out of your hand. All right, so you want to support the weight of the camshaft as it comes out. And there's bearings, and the bearings are tight, so they're gonna have to slide. You gotta slide through those bearing holes each time. So now there's the camshaft.
So tiny.
Now there's the stamp number right there. 301466. So now I would be able to find that number and tell me the characteristics of this cam. Yeah, see that right there? That's bad. See that big old, yep. So that right there might make me have to buy a new cam.
Get a massive cam, like massive. And you should put VTEC.
I don't think you can backfit these for VTEC. You see these spirals in there? Mm-hmm. What do you think that's for? Acts like a little mini oil pump. Mm-hmm. So the oil comes into the bearing and it gets in that channel, and as this spins, it forces the oil out. So you get like a little mini oil pump inside there, and then just the back. So you got 3 bearings. There you can see that scoring right there. Unfortunately, that's a bad deal. So I wonder, I'll have to line it up and see if that's, no, it was number 2 intake. I thought maybe that might be the same valve. That looks like it lost its valve seat, but it's not. So that's kind of a bummer. That's probably going to be the end of that cam, or at least maybe look at getting a machined. I don't know. I don't think the cams are all that expensive, and maybe a hotter cam would be more fun anyway. So we'll get this wrapped up and get it protected and put it away. Okay. You're almost out of room. So there's that guy. 3 really stupid thin spacers.
What the heck, man?
Now we gotta get these 2 screws out. This is a sealing block, right? And you get this out, and underneath of it is gonna be number 1 main bearing. So these are obviously pretty hefty duty screws. I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it with a regular screwdriver. We might have to do it with a screw socket. All right, so now I think this will I think that's all that holds that, except for the gasket material. So I think you can take the mallet and just kind of come at it, or just do that. All right, so then all the paper from the gasket. All right, you see that, the little wood. All right, and then we also have something kind of similar in the back here, except this is the rear main seal, and this is going to be a little tricky because of the
mount.
Yeah, the mount. But these are the bolts that we want to get off. So those are 7/16, and I think we have a 7/16 wrench. I don't think you're going to be able to get a socket in there on any of them. You want to put your hand right on top here. All right, and which way are you going? Yep. There you go, good. Bring it all the way around and spin. There you go, okay, then stop. We're just gonna get them all four of them we're gonna get loose. Nope, tighten it. Come towards me.
I know.
All right. You're good, here. Here you go. Get your hand over here. Okay, good. All right, so now we pretty much got them all finger tight. So these are the caps. Underneath of that cap is the actual connecting rod. And then inside is bearings that take the oil and all that kind of stuff. So you can't mix these up. They're even stamped. If you notice here, there's a BB and then there's a BB. So not only is the cap need to go with the connecting rod, but it needs to go in the right orientation, right? So these letters should be in line. If you flipped it around, it's not gonna work. So when they machine this, they like put it all together and then they machine it. So if you were to flop it around, the machine is gonna be just slightly different and you're gonna run through bearings like crazy. We can go ahead, we'll pull these two off and all we wanna do is get the caps out and the bolts and the washers and whatever else, right? I'll get the bags ready and then we're just gonna push down on the piston a little bit to get the connecting rod out of the way. We'll do that for all four and then we'll come and we'll take these big honking puppies off and get the crankshaft out. And then we'll push the pistons out and then the liners and that's it, I'll be done. All right, see that big, see that big, whoosh, I don't think that's supposed to be there, but that surface looks good so far. So there's the bearing out of number 4. You see that big streak that's in the middle there? I don't think that's right. I don't know why that would be there. Definitely bad wear there. So, but we'll continue on. All right, you get under there and get ready to grab it. Ready?
Yeah.
Don't drop it. So much bigger than the Spitfire. Holy cow. All right, number 4 piston. Mahle, M-A-H-L-E is the, appears to be the manufacturer on it. Rings don't appear to be seized at all. Maybe the middle oil ring is. A lot of gunk. Now all we got left to do is get the crankshaft out.
Cranky.
And then we'll knock the piston liners out just because I want to see it. Good. Got some oomph to it, huh? All right, same thing. We'll get them all loose, then we'll come back. You should be able to wiggle it out. 2 hands. Just don't drop it.
Which way is it coming?
It should come straight up, yeah. Or if you can, I just don't want you to, you don't want to hit the crankshaft and score it. That looks good, actually. It's a big oil channel in there, right? That's what that's for. All right, number 1, main cap. Bearing looks better than any of the piston bearings did, that's for sure. So there's that guy. This weighs what, 2 pounds? Got some weight to it. Go about that a different way.
It's moving. No, I got it.
What'd you lose? Oh, these are, you got another one right there, yeah. So these are thrust washers. And that's the crankshaft because of the way that the torque works on the motor, wants to go this way as well as spin. So what these do is they just take that and provide a bearing surface. And you've got grooves in them for oil. And that's a critical measurement. So you take thrust of the crank. All right, so now the crankshaft should lift right out. No idea how heavy it is. So if you want to grab the front, because it's a nice big thing, you're going to want to stand center to it. Yeah, let's go over to the workbench with it.
What?
Did it move?
That whole, not that, the whole thing.
What do you mean?
It's a lot thicker than this.
Yeah. That it spreads out a lot.
Oh.
But it moved?
Yeah.
Came down? Okay. Good catch, killer.
I was holding it. It's disgusting.
That's kind of cool.
Not for my hand.
Nice.
Well, it smells like burnt. It's weird. It smells like food.
But see all this gunkiness? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things. All right, well, interesting. So that's number one. So this is.
Ooh.
That's the seals.
Why does it look like it has mustard on it?
That's all that gunk from the coolant and everything. Ew. Look at that. Yucky, yucky, yucky. Yucky. And these are just the two seals that go in between. Yeah, that's nasty. Insides are nice though. Mm-hmm. All right, so we got the motor all stripped down. I put the crank and the camshaft in here just to provide a convenient place to put them. Everything seems to be machined over 10 thousandths, both the main and the connecting rod bearings, as marked on the bearings themselves. So that'll be some measurements I'll have to verify. Wasn't able to get the fourth sleeve out of the block, the wet liner, just because I think that's where all the gunk collects from the water and all that stuff. So put some PB blaster in there. But thanks to the Apprentice, we've got the motor completely torn apart. And now the next step will be some critical measurements and see what we're looking at. Thanks again for watching. Cheers.